Maggots are complicit, and they're not, even though they were conned by Trump, but Trump sycophants were the most pivotal part of his group. Trump is a fully grown adult. He's not a child as everybody treats him, but his followers aren't naive children either. Now, Americans love a redemption story, especially one that measures the democratic America that right-wing jackasses just need a little education to see the light and renounce their bigoted past. Inevitably, inevitably, then there was widespread swooning in the denouncement of Tuesday's hearing when Stephen Ayers, an insurrectionist who testified about his January 6 regrets, approached four police officers injured in the riot to apologize. This was an extraordinary moment, is how Jacqueline Alamany of the Washington Post described it. Somewhere in here is our way out of this, comedian Chip Franklin tweeted. Former Democratic Senator from Missouri, Claire McCaskill, had gushed that Ayers had the class to apologize and the courage to come forward and admit he was duped. This is impressive, she concluded. The officers themselves, however, were not impressed. The former Metropolitan Police officer, Michael Fanone, had bluntly told reporters the apology doesn't really do shit for me. Capitol Police Officer Aquilino Gonell was forced to retire due to disabilities that were caused by the riot. He accepted the apology reluctantly, saying that he still has to answer for what he did legally. In response to a tweet about apologies being given and accepted, Capitol Police Officer Harry Dunn clarified apology given. I got nothing, Dunn later told ABC News, noting that he does not believe in forgiveness over time. Now, Metropolitan Police Officer Daniel Hodges did tell CNN's Jack Tapper that he told Jack Tapper that he accepted the apology with reluctance, and only, he argued, for pragmatic reasons. You have to be willing to forgive those people when they apologize, he argued, because if you de-incentivize them, de-incentivize the return to rationality, this culture war will never end. As it was noted in an analysis of Tuesday's hearing, there are good reasons the January 6th committee wishes to portray people like Ayers as victims, and to basically quote Representative Cheney, a Republican from Wyoming, and to put their faith and their trust in Donald Trump only to be deceived by him. It's easier both politically and legally to hold Trump responsible for the people, to the people who did his bidding, as being cast as dupes in the thrall of a deceptive cult leader. Now, plus, as Hodges notes, there is less incentive for Trumpers to renounce their leader if they get shunned no matter what. Still, as the discomfort with Ayers' testimony and apology demonstrates, the simplistic redemption narrative is going to be a tough sell. Now, this is not the tragic story of the cult followers of Jim Jones or Keith Raniere, whose sympathetic desires for empowerment and community were used against them. People go maggot because of their ugliest impulses. They follow Trump because he's a violent racist and a sexual predator, not despite those facts, but Trump gives his followers permission to be their worst selves, and that's why they love him, even though he doesn't love them in return. Now, much of Tuesday's hearing was focused on how Trump deliberately rejected factual information and surrounded himself with people like Rudy Giuliani, the crackhead Mike Lindell, and Sidney Powell, all of whom would tell him whatever idiotic lies he wanted to hear. What was eluded, however, was that Trump's followers like Ayers do exactly the same thing. No one is forcing them to turn away from fact-driven media, so that one is forcing them so that they can wallow in disinformation on Bo and Facebook. And that is a choice they are making for exactly the same reason Trump makes it. They prefer their toxic fantasies over the truth. Now, reading the FBI arrest documents for Ayers strongly challenges the notion that he was an innocent dupe who was just working on bad information. Literally, within hours of the Capitol Klan insurrection, Ayers was on Facebook generating disinformation of his own. In the video, Ayers and his friend try to pin the whole thing on Antifa, which they weren't even there, and Antifa's not even really a group, even though as participants in that Klan insurrection, they knew full well who was actually motivating that crowd. Now, this video points to a hard but necessary truth to absorb about Trump sycophants. They believe themselves to be in on the con, and Trump does bamboozle his sycophantic inbreds with lies, but not the ones that January 6th committee and the media focus on, such as the election lies. His real trick is convincing his sycophants that they can get away with lying and cheating, just the way that their beloved leader gets away with it. Of course, as Ayers' arrest record shows, they cannot. As Tapper said in his segment with the Elvisers, Ayers seems somewhat repentant today. Um, there have been over 250 guilty pleas from the Klan insurrectionists already. Now, few express regret or anger at Trump. When they do, it's almost never about the deeply rooted reasons they were there that day. Mostly they seem mad that Trump led them to believe that they get away with it. No doubt Ayers is the best the January 6th committee could get in terms of open remorse, but even he seemed uninterested in talking about why exactly he started down the path of disinformation, of being a disinformation addict. As Cheney noted in her opening remarks Tuesday, Trump is an adult and not an impressionable child, and therefore he is responsible for his own actions and his own choices. And the same can be held true of Trump's sycophants. And yes, in a narrow sense, the people caught rioting at the people that were caught Klan rioting at the Capitol are being held responsible, but they are being charged with crimes and doing their time. But we are facing a larger, more existential question. When it comes to maggots, and about what it means to treat people like adults who are responsible for their own actions. Every person who votes for Trump and wants to vote for him again is complicit. Every person who chooses faux over reality-based media is complicit. Everyone who shares maggot memes or spreads the big lie on social media is complicit. They are like Trump adults, and they are responsible for spreading these lies. Now, even the story of Jason Van Tatenhove, who's the former Oath Keeper who testified yesterday, doesn't really fit the mold of a maggot who renounced his ugly views. On the contrary, he seems to have hit the eject button because he realized that he didn't share the core bigotries that motivated others in the organization, and without that, it was just harder to play into the lies. And love of disinformation is a peccadillo that springs from bigotry and not the other way around. Now, on Tuesday, Greg Sargent and Paul Waldman wrote a compelling Washington Post editorial pointing out that Repug leadership, and not just Trump, fed the belief among countless Americans that the election actually could be procedurally reversed, even as they knew that the maggot crowd was gathering in the Capitol. And armed with violent fantasies, the Repug leaders continued to support Trump's election lies. Now, while it seems true that the Repug leaders bear responsibility for stoking these lies, it is equally true that they did so because their base was demanding that their leaders lied to them. At Tuesday's hearing, the committee played a recording of Representative Debbie Lasko, who's a Republican from Arizona, complaining to GOP leaders that the Trump sycophants actually believed that they were going to get the election overturned, and when that didn't happen, she worried they were going to go nuts. She went on to vote to overturn the election anyway. It's repulsive, it's repulsive immoral behavior. It's also a reaction to the demands of the crowd. Lesko, like most of Trump's GOP's sycophants, they played along with the lies because it pleased their base and benefited her politically. The Repug politicians know that the price of telling their voters the truth is lost election, so they give the people what they want: fucking lies. There's a great deal of appeal to a story about how Trump sycophants are unfortunate dupes that were misled by disinformation. Now that narrative offers the hope of a cure. If only they engage with facts instead of lies, then we'll get better and our country can return to normal. There's even some truth to this, as shown by a study in which faux viewers were paid to switch to CNN, and for that short period they became less delusional in their opinions. Now with that study being done, it also showed a grim reality. As soon as they were no longer being paid, the study participants switched right back to faux, and started getting stupider in their opinions as a result. It's not because they were unaware that CNN was an option, but being idiots who wallow in disinformation is an active choice being made by adults and not impressionable children. What Trump and faux have demonstrated in the past decade is that lying is profitable, because there's a huge audience who craves lies. As long as that remains true, it's hard to see what incentives the GOP leaders and the right-wing media have to tone down to the lying. But that doesn't mean the situation is hopeless. The real story from Ayers' testimony yesterday is not one of remorse, but it is of power and consequence. There may not be much that can be done about people clinging to bigoted ideologies because it suits their egos to believe them, but they can be convinced not to break the law in order to achieve bigoted ends, if there are legal consequences in doing so. And this is why it's so crucial not to let Trump skate away from legal consequences for attempting that coup. Now, the reason why the Klan insurrectionists rioted that day is because Trump led them to believe that they, like him, could get away with committing crimes. He continues to dangle the promise of pardons to keep them on the hook. If he finally stopped getting away with crime, it might show his followers, or like his sycophants have, that they too are immune from facing consequences. Now, if you like the video, you can give the video a like and subscribe to my channel, RBW King. You can also hit the notification bell so that you've been notified when a new video comes out. And if you want to support my work and my brother, you can donate to my Patreon link, which you can find in the About section of YouTube. And for just as little as a few bucks a month, your donation can help go a long way, and thanks for listening.